Hello, I want to tell you a quick story about a product I tried to develop, or I'm developing, and why I did that, and how I got there, and some technicalities, and ultimately I'd like to get your opinion on what you think, and if I've been wrong about my vision, so to say. So, 2 years ago, I got major back pain, and it got so bad that I couldn't sit for longer than 10 minutes in my lower back. And I went to the doctors and did all the things and did physiotherapy and tried to get rid of it, and it didn't work. And basically my doctor said, okay, you have degenerated discs. We don't really know what's going on. Do physiotherapy. If that doesn't help, just take painkillers. And I'm not American, so I don't want to take painkillers for the rest of my life. So I said, okay, if I want to work a computer job for the next couple of years, I need to find a way to sit again without pain, or to work again without pain. So I had this idea. I said, okay, it's the compression of my discs in my lower back. The longer I sit, the bigger the pain gets, and it's not muscular. And so what I need to do is find a position where I can decompress my spine, basically, and work in a position where that's not able to cause pain anymore. And so I tried standing desks and ergonomic chairs, and all this stuff didn't work. So I said, okay, I can basically just lie down at this point. And I had a lot of projects that I needed to finish and couldn't just stop working. So I went to the hardwood store and just bought a bunch of tools and wood. And in 24 hours, I built something like this and put my laptop in, screwed it on the wall, and tried it out. And basically, I was lying on my sofa in my living room for 6 hours, or 8 hours straight, actually. Got up and thought, hey, I don't have back pain. I can work like this. As crazy as it looks, as crazy as it feels like to work while lying down, it actually works. And you have crazy focus. It works really well. And I got up and it hit me and was like, this could be a product. Because I searched for 2 weeks straight, every day for at least like 1 or 2 hours, and I didn't find any product that would allow me to work in a not upright position, basically, because all the upright positions would cause pain in my back. And so it hit me, this could be a product. I know a lot of people in my age who are in their 20s and 30s who develop back pain. And it's known by now that it's from sitting. Sitting is not a natural position, and we shouldn't do it basically, but we have to. And that's what causes back pain and kaput backs. So I was motivated. I thought, if there's nothing on the market, I'm just a software developer, but I like a challenge. So I thought, why not try to develop the best thing that I could potentially make into a product in 6 months. So I set myself the deadline, said, okay, in 6 months, what can I come up with? And so the first thing I did was sketch it out and try different concepts and see what concepts there even are. But in the end, I just ended up with the same prototype that I designed and built in 24 hours, which is basically an arm that extends from the wall where you can mount your laptop, and then you can work lying down. And if you don't need it, you can just put it back onto the wall. And I called up a guy. I made a web shop once for his company, and he builds climbing tools like his hangboards where you can train your finger strength for professional climbers. And he was a product designer. His stuff is really cool. I'll link it. And I called him up and said, hey, do you have a minute? I have an idea, like you could probably help me, give me some tips. And he was really nice. He was really kind and said, okay, let's meet up. And he said, hey, cool idea. Why not just use my workshop and see what you can come up with? And that was insane to me because he had so many great, expensive tools and so much cool stuff I could use. And he was really helpful. He was really nice to me. And so I spent like 1 or 2 months trying to make another prototype, a better prototype. So try different concepts, and that was fun. But I figured out pretty fast I'm not gonna get anywhere with that. I mean, after a month, I knew I had to learn 3D design. And this is something I never really touched because I know a lot of people who are really good at 3D design, and back in school a lot of people were good at it, but it's like a little universe I never really wanted to open, because once you're in, you gotta spend a lot of time to get good in it. And so I said, okay, there's no way around it. And I bought Autodesk, or I got Autodesk Fusion, which has a great startup license, and started to learn how to design in 3D. And it was really, that was a big epiphany, because when you've never designed something in 3D, you actually don't really have, I didn't have the mental capacity to imagine things in 3D, so to modify them in my brain and visualize them, and it was really tough. More than 2 or 3 concepts at once was too much for me, and it took me like 2 or 3 months to really train that part of my brain to really be good at 3D design. So that was interesting, but I got the hang of it and I got really good at it, and it's not a problem anymore. But that was a steep learning curve, but it was fun. It was stressful, but it was fun. And then I could iterate the prototypes, and then could make incremental changes much more easily, and really test out simple features and only change small parts. And then I figured out, okay, the next step is I need to learn how to use CNC machines. Basically, Fusion was perfect, and it was an accident that I chose this, but they have a 3D design part, and then they have a CAM manufacturing part, where you can just lay out your model flat on a 2D plane and program the CNC machine how to cut out the parts. And that was another big part that took me 2 months of intense work to really find out how CNC machines work. And that was intense, but it was also very, very fun, because I've never figured out I could use such large machines. And we have a company called Happy Lab in Vienna, and they basically rent out CNC machine upon other things, and they're great because it's really cheap, and you can basically build products or get through the whole manufacturing process of building products. And after 2 months I was figuring that out, and I could really pump out 1 prototype per week, or maybe 2. And then 7 months were over, and I was like, damn, I'm not finished. I only wanted to spend 6 months, but I was so far in the process, I wouldn't have stopped. And so I just continued and tried different things, and so there are a lot of fun experiences. One of the biggest issues I had was not realizing that I'm overly focusing on design. So my idea was, if that's something that other people would use, I would want it to look like a piece of furniture. If you're hanging that up in your living room above your sofa, above your couch, you don't want it to look mechanical or tacky or whatever. I wanted it to have a nice wooden design and look like a interesting piece of furniture. And so I could not even remotely let go of this idea, and was so fixated on it. But it's the wrong approach, and it took me like a year to figure that out. You should obviously first go for the technical details and see which mechanics are viable and actually usable for the product, instead of just closing yourself in on your design requirements. And that was really not, that stressed me out in the end, because I was so limited in what I could do, because it had to look fancy and I didn't want any screws to show, and that was actually a bit insane. But I loosened up a bit, and I said, okay, screws are fine. You can see screws. You can use nice furniture screws. They look nice. It's okay. And started to refine the process. And I had several key design features, which were the idea that it just folds out from the wall. The idea that you can plug in your laptop, no matter what size it is, or your iPad, with handlebars that has a spring platform, so you can just fold it in, and the spring platform locks it in, so you can basically use any kind of sized tablet. And the idea that when you open it up, you can lie under it, and then you rotate the outer arm, and so the laptop faces you. When you don't use it anymore, you rotate it back and put it back up. So that was the idea. And the reason why there's nothing on the market like it is, I figured it out pretty quickly, is to make it easily usable, but also physically stable is super hard. So all the moving parts, all the hinges have to be super tight and super, don't have any wiggle room, because if some parts start to wiggle, the whole arm starts to wiggle, and then the screen vibrates, and it's really uncomfortable for the eyes. So you want to avoid that. And I was really focused on that, and that was one of the biggest parts. And hello. And so I focused on a part. I focused on singular parts way too much. I tried to design a hinge that was so tight but still movable to avoid these vibrations. And I spent, I think, an entire month on designing such a hinge. I have several prototypes of hinges until I figured out that's no way to produce a product anyway, because it's not, you can't afford that. I had one prototype, one very early prototype. It's really embarrassing to even show this, but I designed a prototype for a hinge, and I wanted to CNC all the parts. So I wanted only custom parts, because it makes it look good, makes it work the best basically if I design all the parts for the perfect use, which is insane. But I ordered one of the prototypes from a CNC manufacturing company in China, and this is what it looked like. And of course, as the first prototype, it didn't work at all, because I didn't know what tolerances were. That was a 300 euro experiment, but it was pretty cool. They shipped it in like 3 weeks, and they were super communicative. I can link the company. So yeah, and I figured out there's no way I can even afford to CNC any metal parts and use it in a product that should be affordable, because I thought maximum 3, 4, maybe 500 euros would be an okay price. Everything above that is just not. I mean, if it costs more than a desk itself, actually, I don't know. It was a big part was trying to bring the price down, because I wanted to make it affordable. These super expensive lie-in chairs where you can mount your displays and then lay back, like, they exist, but nobody can afford them, and nobody has the space to put them in. At least on normal people. And so I wanted to make an affordable version, and a lot of that was refining, changing, getting the time down for CNC machining, which was also a huge part. I reiterated just the way the CNC machine works. I had so many iterations of that to get the time down. I got it down from 3 hours to basically 1 hour of machining time per unit, which was okay for the idea I had to develop 20 units or 10 units and sell them and see what people say, like, as a first round of units. Hello. I må jeg tænke, og så sætter det spillet der. I just got stopped by the owner of this place. He just drove up here with a moped. Really nice guy. Anyways, if you have any inputs, I appreciate it, because after 1.5 years of iterating and perfecting and optimizing workflows and trying to cut costs down, I was about 80% finished, and it's not good enough for me to release it on the market. The problem is, after 1.5 years, I got really sick. I got long COVID, and I basically couldn't work for a year. And now I'm fit again, and I'm questioning whether my idea was kind of crazy or whether I completely miscalculated the market. Maybe there's no market for it at all. I just don't know whether to continue working on it, or if I just should scrap it. I use it myself. It works pretty good. I wouldn't sell it to other people yet because there's some usability issues. It's not completely safe if you use it incorrectly. But yeah, I'm gonna do another video where I go into all the technicalities. So if you're a crafty guy, if you want to develop your own product, I'm gonna show you in another video all the techniques in depth, where from 3D printing, CNC machining, software that I use, techniques that I tried, from developing molds to bend metal and all that stuff. I try to do everything myself and then see which parts I should delegate anyway. So there was a lot of learning, and I'm gonna do another video where I go into depth with all of that. But I'd just like to know, do you think there's a market? Would you be interested in using such a thing yourself? And what would you be willing to pay for it? Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next video.